Okay, so now we've got the widgets working for our pump and our valve. We're going to add some graphics for our water. We're going to add an overflow graphic that'll trip or show when the tanks or the bucket's full of water. And then we're going to add a puddle over here to show when the water is draining. And then maybe we'll add a little water pouring in here for the graphic when we're turning the pump on. So let's go ahead and make this happen. We'll display pages, and what I'm going to do here for this is I'm going to go over here to the left and go into Symbol Factory, and I think if I go down to the category Tank Cutaways here, I'll show you what I'm going to do. Tank Cutaways. And if you look, team, there are these 5 images right here that I found if I can oscillate through these quickly, I can make water look like it's splashing. So those are the 5 images I'm going to use, but the primitive that I will use for this is going to be in primitives, in the core primitives on top. In the upper right hand corner is the animated image. So I'm going to drag this guy out here for now, and I'll place it right here. And I'm going to go ahead and double click on this guy to bring up its properties. And notice Crimson automatically kicks you over to Symbol Factory because it realizes you want to maybe put some pictures here. So there's 5 images I want to use, these 5 right here. So I'm going to change the image count here to 5, and now I get 5 blank boxes. And I'm just going to grab these images and drag them into these boxes. It doesn't matter what order I do them as long as they're all different. I'll drag them in here like this, place them in there like that. So I've got my 5 images, but I need something here that's going to oscillate between 0 and 4 to create these images. So what I've found is in the lower right hand corner of Crimson is System, and if I expand the Functions tree, and then team, if you expand the Math category, there's all these math functions in here. If I go down to a function here called Random right here, so let's right click on this, see what it does. Show Help Info. It should open up the PDF, and the Random function will generate a random number between 0 and minus whatever is in the parentheses. So if I want this thing to generate a random number between 0 and 4, I will put a 5 here. So I'm going to close the little PDF there. And I'm just going to grab this random function, and look, I'm going to drag and drop it right here. Boom. That puts it there. But I want to put a number 5 right here in the parentheses. So I'm going to click a few times in here where I get my cursor in there. And I'll delete the 0, put a 5. Boom. That takes care of that. Now, the only time we want this image, in this case I'm going to say the overflow, the only time we want this to show up for the overflow is when the overflow trips. So if I go over to the right side and go to data tags on the right side, and I'm just going to use the tag called overflow, and if I just drag and drop it right here into the show item field, anytime this equals 1, it should show this image. So I'm going to click the OK button down below here, and I'm going to take this graphic I just made, and I'm going to try with this mouse I have. I can't really work very well. Stretch it, and I'm going to put it over here like this. Maybe I'll make it a little, I didn't want to move that. Make this guy a little skinnier. I'll zoom in, that'll help me. And I'll shrink it, and then I'll stretch this guy like so. My goal is to make it look like kind of water is overflowing like so. So let's see if this works. So I'm going to go ahead and download this to my HMI. We've got our web page here up and running so we can see it live. And we'll wait for this thing to reset here. Is it resetting? Well, let me go back here and reset my web page here. Really? There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn on our pump. So we're going to fill this guy up here. Let's see what happens when it gets full. We're looking for the overflow to trip here, and it should get the splash. Hey, there it is. I'm kind of graphically showing water splashing. It's randomly oscillating. Now, of course, if I turn off the pump, it disappears because it's no longer overflowing. I'm putting water in the tank, so that worked good. Let me go ahead and drain this down just a little bit here. And I'm going to go back to Crimson. I'm going to add a water splashing here whenever the pump's on. So watch this trick. I'm going to take this picture, this thing we just did. I'm going to right click and I'm going to copy it and then right click and paste. I get a pasted version of it, but I want this thing to sit right about in here. So I'm going to take this guy and shrink it. Let's see here. Well, maybe I'm not. I'm going to try to shrink it. Oh, this new mouse I have is just not the best, but right here. Alright, so I'm going to make it really skinny like that, and then I'm going to shrink it sort of like this, and I'm going to put this guy kind of right here. My goal is to maybe show that when the pump is on. So I'm going to double click on this guy to bring up its properties, and instead of the overflow tag, I'm going to use the pump tag and put it here. So anytime the pump tag goes on, it will go ahead and do that. Let me look at something here. I'll leave it the way it was. Alright, so let's try this. So whenever the pump's on, let me zoom in a little bit. Maybe I'll make this guy a little bigger, and I'll do it like that, kind of like that. Yep, that'll work. Alright, so let's go ahead and download this and see what it does here. Wait for the screen to reset here. Well, it's done, so it should, there we go. Alright, so let's go ahead and turn it on. Look, we got water pouring in, which is perfect. That's what I wanted, some kind of visualization showing water kind of coming out of the pipe, if you will. There it is. That looks good, looks perfect to me. So if I turn it off, both disappear. That's perfect. Okay, now what about the idea of the water down here? So when I open the valve, I'm going to show water. I'm going to show like a puddle here of water coming out of this thing. So for this, I'm going to go back to here, and once again I'm going to copy this image here, copy it, paste this version, and I'm going to take this one and I'll move it over here, and I'm going to go, what I do is I'm going to make it a little wider, and then I'm going to squish it really down, and my goal is to make this look like a puddle here when the valve is open. Okay, but I need to talk about something here. If I go back to our simulator, or the real screen here, if I drain this down, I want the puddle to show up here all the way on the bottom, but when the tank gets empty, you can pretend there's like a sensor here after this. You'll notice that when the tank goes empty, this will trip to empty. Watch. There it is. So the puddle I want to disappear when the drain flow, because there's no water coming out of it right now, so I want the puddle to disappear when the tank is empty, but I want the puddle to be there when the tank is draining water. So I have two conditions. The valve must be opened, and the drain flow must not equal 1 or must not be empty. So this will be a little different. I'm going to double click on this puddle, and right here, instead of it being just a simple tag, it's really a combination statement. So I'm going to hit the pull down here and choose complex, which will bring up this little window here, and instead of it returning this overflow, I'm going to delete that part, and I'm going to put 2 open parentheses, and it's a combination statement. The valve must be opened, so I'm going to go over here to the right to data tags, and I'm going to grab the valve tag and I'm going to put it right here, and I'm going to ask the question. So I usually do a space, and I'll put 2 equal signs, space, and a 1. That condition is going to ask if the valve is open, and then I also have to ask, is the tank not empty? So I'm going to put a space, 2 ampersand signs, because it's a compound statement, and then I'll do a open quotation marks there, open parentheses I mean, and I'm going to drag the drain flow out here, and I'll do a space, and I can do it a couple ways, team. I can say must equal 0 there like that, or I could say exclamation point not equal to a 1 does the exact same thing. So I'm going to do the 2 equal signs, and a 0 means it's not empty, and then I'm going to do 2 quotation marks and a semicolon. So you really have a compound statement here, team. You have, let's see if I get the colors. You have this condition must be true, and this condition must be true for this thing to feed in a 1 to turn this on. So I'm going to go ahead and close that, click OK, and let's go ahead and download this and see if it works. Wait for our screen to come back. So I'll go ahead and put some water in the tank. We'll fill it up a little bit here. I'll take it up to 10 here for this. That's a good enough amount of water. So I'll turn my pump off, and I'll open this up. So notice you get water puddle coming out here. I guess I should add some more pipes, but you can see a puddle coming out here. Now watch what happens when the tank goes empty. The puddle disappears because there's no more water coming out of the tank. However, what if I turn on the pump right now? It triggers this to come in, and you can see the water's coming right out. Nothing's accumulating because I got the valve open. However, if I close the valve here, you can see that it fills up, and if I change this to say 10 gallons instead of 20, we won't have to wait as long. So now it'll fill all the way up, and I'll get the overflow trip. There's that overflow image. However, if I open the valve, the overflow disappears because the water's coming out. So turn this off, and I can let it come down. So that's a way, team, to use the animated image to make a couple different images of water overflowing and oscillating through different pictures. Yeah. Okay, so that covers the DrainFlow images of the waterfall out and the puddle, and I also added that graphic for us filling up, which I think is a pretty cool idea. Alright, we'll continue on the next video here in a second.